Hi there. Tonight we're going to take a walk, not just through time, but through memory. A journey from the soft buzz of a flip phone in your pocket to the shimmering, hyper-filtered windows of today's front-facing world. It starts with a sound, not a ping or a notification, just a vibration. That quiet little hum that used to mean someone was thinking of you. Not a company, not an algorithm, a person. You're curled up under the covers now. Maybe your phone's beside you. Maybe it isn't. But tonight, we're going back to a time when our devices weren't quite so clingy, when they sat in our bags or jackets, waiting patiently. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive this back then. Without GPS, without autocorrect, without knowing the weather 3 cities away. But maybe, just maybe, you'd be a little more present. So, before you get cozy, hit like and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy what I'm doing here. And if you're up for it, let me know in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what time is it over there? Now dim the lights, turn on a soft fan if you've got one, and slowly step with me into tonight's story. You hear it before you see it. The buzz. Not an aggressive buzz, not a "you have 74 unread messages" buzz, just one, maybe two. Your hand reaches down into your pocket. There it is. The unmistakable shape of a phone, a real phone. Not a glass rectangle, not a glowing slab. Something that folds, something with a hinge. Something that feels, strangely, human. You flip it open with one thumb. That little snap. Remember that? The sound alone made you feel like a secret agent. The screen lights up. Backlight blue, pixelated, a bit sleepy. No widgets, no app tray. Just your wallpaper, probably a blurry dog or your favorite band's logo, and 2 soft keys, menu and contacts. You had 5 contacts that mattered, maybe 10. The rest were polite add-ons. You didn't need hundreds of followers to feel known. One message was enough to light up your whole day, especially if it came from them. You press a button, not a touchscreen tap. A button. It clicks, solid, tactile. Your fingers remembered where everything was, like piano keys. You didn't need to look. There's something funny about the way we used to treat our phones. We didn't check them every minute. We didn't feel phantom vibrations in our leg. We didn't apologize to them when we dropped them. We just snapped the battery back in. Back then, your phone wasn't your reflection. It wasn't a mirror you stared into, wondering if your life measured up. It was just a tool, a bridge to someone else, not a cage for yourself. Some scholars argue that our perception of time shifted as phones evolved. The urgency of every ping fractured our sense of presence. But back then, you could miss a message and it was fine. You'd call back or not. Life moved slower, less curated, more real. You sit down on a bench. Let's say it's a park bench, or maybe a cracked plastic seat at a bus stop. The evening air is warm, no blue light, just street lamps and stars. Your phone buzzes again. You flip it open. It's them. They said something dumb. You smile. You write back, typing, "See you soon," one button at a time. S-E-E. It takes effort, which means it takes care. You're not texting 10 people while half watching a video. You're here, fully, in that moment. The screen goes dark. You don't stare at it. You just breathe. You're still smiling. A few minutes later, a woman nearby pulls out the same model. Pink, bedazzled, stickers on the back. She looks at you and laughs. "Yours still works?" You both nod, like two time travelers who accidentally landed on the same sidewalk. There's something else too. No camera stares at you from the front. You have to turn the phone around if you want a photo, which means you mostly don't. No selfies, no pressure. You just live it. You remember it in your bones, not your gallery. Records suggest that the first mainstream flip phone hit markets in the mid-1990s, but it wasn't until the early 2000s that they became cultural icons, status symbols in miniature. Motorola, Nokia, Samsung, each with its own little personality. And each one did just enough. You could call, you could text, you could maybe play Snake if your boss wasn't watching. And that was plenty. There was dignity in enough. Now your phone does more. It sings, it dances, it scrolls endlessly. It shows you faces that aren't real, lives that aren't yours. But here, in this small moment under the low light of memory, you remember what it felt like when a message was a small miracle, not an avalanche. Tonight, your phone buzzes once. You let it. You don't check it. You close your eyes. You smile. And for a moment, you're back there, before everything was measured, captured, and filtered. Just you, a little blue screen, and someone who wanted to talk. You hold the phone in your palm. It's heavier than you remember. Not in weight, exactly, but in presence. It feels real. A thing made to be held, not just stared at. You flip it open again. That snap, it never gets old. Like opening a letter, or the cover of a favorite notebook. Then comes the click of the keys. Real keys. Raised plastic buttons that push back when pressed, like they're tapping out Morse code. Your thumbs still remember the rhythm. You know the layout by heart. 2 taps for A, 3 for C. The number 5 sits at the center like a compass. You used to text whole conversations this way. You could do it with your eyes closed, and sometimes you did. Under the desk at school, at dinner, hoping no one noticed. And when you were done, click, snap, back in your pocket. That was it. No doom scroll, no endless replies, no, I should have said that differently. Just a message sent, a thought shared. Now your thumbs swipe and twitch. They ache sometimes, from doing too much without really making anything. They work, but not the way they used to. Not to build, not to shape. Some say tactile memory sticks deeper than visual memory. Maybe that's why you still remember the feel of your old Nokia keypad more than your last 10 texts. Why this little phone feels like a time capsule. Back then, dropping your phone wasn't a disaster. The back popped off. Maybe the battery skittered across the floor. You picked it up, snapped it together, and moved on. No cracked screen, no dread. There was a kind of grace in that. How things could break and still be okay. You lift the flip phone to your ear. No speakerphone, no earbuds. Just a tiny speaker pressed gently to your face. The world quiets. You can't multitask. You have to listen. And in that stillness, you find something rare. Presence. Strange, isn't it? With all we've advanced, being truly present has become difficult, even luxurious. A lost art. You remember waiting for replies, not in seconds, but in hours, sometimes days. And the wait? It wasn't anxious. It was full of wonder. What would they say? What would you say? You walked through conversations in your head, rehearsing each reply. It made everything feel more meaningful. Now responses are instant and forgotten just as fast. Back then, a blinking red light or a tiny envelope icon told you a message had arrived. That was it. No pings or vibrations hijacking your focus. You decided when to check, and sometimes you didn't. That idea feels comforting now. The freedom of not being instantly reachable. Not offline in a dead zone, but alive in another moment. And the design. Remember the design? Phones came in colors. Shiny reds, soft blues, brushed silvers. Some flipped, others swiveled. Some looked like toys, others like gadgets from the future. You personalized them with more than cases, with ringtones. You knew who was calling from the sound alone. Your best friend had Avril Lavigne. Your crush? Something classical to impress. Your mom? A simple ring. And when it played, you answered, always. In the early 2000s, ringtones were big business, billions spent each year. But they weren't just sounds. They were statements. A 15-second song that said, "This is me." Now, phones all sound the same. You sit with that for a moment. Then you do something strange. Close your eyes, press your thumb to the buttons, and pretend to write a message. Are you free later? Each letter takes time. You feel it. The effort makes the question more sincere, more human. Funny, back then, we worried about over-texting. We didn't want to seem too eager. We waited. We gave conversation space. And in that space, connections grew stronger. You remember the first time someone called just to say they missed you. No agenda, no Zoom, just a call, a voice. Maybe the conversation was short, but it stayed with you. The way they laughed, the way they said your name. Today, entire conversations happen without a voice. But here, in this quiet place of memory, the voice returns. It's a little tinny, a bit fuzzy, but it's them. And that's enough. You close the phone again. That snap feels like punctuation. A gentle, final period. You smile. Because for a few minutes, the world slowed down. The noise faded. And something as small as a click felt sacred again. You wake up early. Not because an app told you to, not because your phone gently buzzed your wrist with a reminder to breathe, but because the sun peeked in through the curtains. And that was enough. The world is slower here, quieter. And the first thing you reach for isn't a screen. It's a pen. There's a notebook on the desk, the kind with a worn spine and maybe a coffee ring stamped on the cover like a personal seal. You flip it open. The pages are full, not perfectly, but truthfully. Doodles in the margins, sentences half crossed out, a few ink smudges that make the paper feel lived in. You used to write like this. Letters to yourself, notes to friends, maybe the lyrics of a song you only half remembered. There's something sacred about writing by hand. The way your thoughts slow down to match the movement of your wrist. The way ideas feel like they're flowing from you instead of through something else. Today, you type, quickly, endlessly. But back then you wrote. Some scholars argue that handwriting activates more regions of the brain than typing, a tactile symphony of memory, language, and spatial awareness. And maybe that's why your old journals still feel so alive when you find them, years later. Each scrawl is a fingerprint of who you were. You sit at the desk now. A little wooden thing. Maybe it's chipped. Maybe it creaks. You pick up the pen and start a sentence without knowing how it ends. It doesn't need to be perfect. No one's watching. There's no grammar checker. No red squiggly lines judging you. Just the sound of ink scratching against paper. Like tiny footsteps walking your thoughts into the world. You glance over at the window. The morning light softens everything. You remember mornings like this, when you'd write something silly on a post-it, stick it to your mirror, and walk away feeling lighter. Or the folded paper notes passed across desks like secret treasure maps. Do you want to hang out later? Why and then? You didn't need emojis to understand the tone. You didn't need predictive text to know what came next. There was vulnerability in writing it yourself, in handing it to someone and waiting. Now, your reminders come in pings. Your affirmations are stored in apps. You can track your gratitude and meditate with voices that aren't your own. But there was a time when your peace came from a pencil sketch on the corner of a math test, from lyrics scribbled on the back of a bus ticket, from a notebook filled not for productivity, but for presence. There's an old box in the closet. You open it. Inside, letters. Real ones. Folded, creased, kissed with fingerprints. You hold one to your nose. It still smells faintly of perfume, or dust, or time. One envelope has your name in someone else's handwriting. Slanted, loopy, familiar. You remember how long it took to arrive. You remember checking the mailbox every day. And when it finally came, you read it 3 times before replying. You picked your words carefully. You wanted them to mean something. And they did. There's a quiet magic in that. In knowing someone took the time to sit down, write, fold, seal, stamp, and send. It made every word feel earned. Now messages travel at the speed of light. But sometimes the meaning gets lost in the speed. You sit back in your chair and run your fingers along the notebook's edge. You wonder if your phone has ever truly captured you, the real you. Not the version that fits in 280 characters. Not the filtered, fine-tuned, spell-checked performance. Just you. The one who writes run-on sentences and spells definitely wrong half the time. The one who draws stars in the corners of every page. The one who still remembers how to fold a paper into a little envelope, even if you haven't done it in years. There's a surprising joy in imperfection, in the smudge, the crossed-out line. The way your handwriting changes when you're excited, or sad, or in love. You look down at the page. You write slowly, "Hey, just thinking of you today." No reply needed. No red receipt. Just the act of writing is enough. Records suggest that the decline of handwriting began around the late 2000s, as keyboards became the primary mode of communication. Some schools even stopped teaching cursive altogether. But you remember, you always will. Because your story, your real story, was once told in ink. And maybe it still could be. The pen rests on the page. The sun is higher now. You close the notebook, not because the thought is finished, but because the moment is full. And maybe, just maybe, that's what we've lost. Not the ability to write, but the permission to pause. To write something not for an audience, but for ourselves. A little whisper on paper that says, "I'm here. I exist. I'm still figuring it out." You smile, because you are. You step outside into the crisp morning air, the scent of dew and earth filling your lungs like an old friend's embrace. The world feels larger here, slower somehow, like the air itself has room to breathe. You begin to walk down a familiar street, the pavement warm beneath your feet, worn smooth by countless footsteps. Ahead, the corner store buzzes with life, the bell over the door jingling as someone enters. You remember when this place was just a little shop with shelves of VHS tapes and dusty magazines, now replaced by slick digital displays and aisles of energy drinks. You pause, watching an elderly man with calloused hands carefully arrange fresh fruit outside. His movements are deliberate, practiced, a rhythm born of decades spent working the land. There's a rugged dignity in his labor, something almost sacred. You can almost feel the weight of those years, the quiet pride in a day's honest work. A few steps further, you see a group of teenagers engrossed in their phones, faces lit by glowing screens as they share memes and videos with fingers dancing faster than your eyes can follow. You wonder what their hands will tell in 10 years. Will they tell stories of creation or just scrolling? Back when things were different, work was visible. You could see the sweat on someone's brow, the grime under fingernails, the calluses earned from shaping the world by hand. It was tangible proof of effort, a testament to endurance. There's ongoing debate about how technology has reshaped the nature of work, blurring lines between labor and leisure. Some argue we've traded physical hardship for mental strain, while others see opportunity in the new digital frontier. You think about your own hands, how they've changed. Once they held tools, hammers, pens, paintbrushes. Now they tap keyboards and swipe glass. They create in pixels, yes, but also in distractions. Yet, there's beauty in adaptation. The street hums with a quiet transformation. A mural on a nearby wall catches your eye. Vibrant colors swirling around a robotic arm painting flowers. It's a nod to progress, a reminder that creation persists, even as the tools evolve. You remember stories your grandparents told you about factories humming with life, about farms lit only by lanterns, about jobs that required sweat and soil and grit. There was a rawness to it, an immediacy. Today, you might not see that grit on faces as much, but it's in the persistence to learn new skills, to adapt, to keep moving forward. You pass a cafe where people sit alone, headphones on, lost in podcasts and playlists. You wonder about the stories they carry, the quiet battles they fight. You think about the future. What jobs might look like 10 years from now? Will hands still bear the marks of work, or will our labor be mostly unseen, in lines of code, virtual meetings, digital designs? You take a deep breath, the scent of roasted coffee beans mixing with fresh air, and you smile. Because no matter the tools, no matter the time, the human spirit endures. It molds, adapts, grows. It finds meaning in work, whether by hand or by mind. You glance back at the man with calloused hands, now nodding a greeting to a passerby. In his eyes, you see a quiet wisdom, a lesson. Work is not just what you do, it's who you become through it. And maybe that's the true change journey. You settle into a quiet corner of a park, the soft rustling of leaves above blending with distant bird calls. The sun filters gently through the branches, casting dappled shadows that dance on the ground. A breeze carries the faint scent of freshly mown grass and something sweet, maybe wildflowers or a memory. You take a deep breath and pull out a small, worn photograph from your pocket. It's faded around the edges, a little curled from years of being handled. You hold it up to the light and see a group of people, friends, family, strangers, caught in a moment of laughter, frozen in time. It's a reminder of how we once captured memories. Back then, cameras were a treasure, bulky, mechanical companions you had to carry carefully. Film rolls needed changing like little rituals, each click of the shutter deliberate, meaningful. You'd wait days to see the results, the anticipation almost as precious as the photos themselves. Now, with every device pocket-sized and connected, 1,000 pictures are snapped in seconds. flooding your screen and cloud storage. But do you truly remember each moment? Or do the images become a blur, lost in the endless scroll? Some scholars argue that the value of photographs lies not in their quantity, but in their intentionality. That's why old albums, dusty, tangible, hold more weight than digital galleries ever could. You press your thumb lightly on the photo, tracing a face, a smile. You remember the laughter behind it, the stories, the warmth. There's an ongoing debate about how technology changes not just what we see, but how we remember. The ease of capturing moments means sometimes we forget to live them fully. The camera becomes a barrier, a screen between you and the world. You lean back on the bench, feeling the rough bark of the wood beneath you, grounding yourself in the present. The breeze carries the distant echo of children playing, their voices bright and unburdened. You think about how photography itself will evolve in the next decade. Maybe lenses will see deeper into emotion, or memories will be stored in ways we can't yet imagine. But you hope, quietly, that the simple joy of looking through a viewfinder, of choosing what to hold on to, will never be lost. You smile softly at the thought. Maybe despite all the change, some things remain sacred. The way light hits a smile, the warmth of a shared glance, the sound of laughter carried on the wind. And as you fold the photo carefully back into your pocket, you feel a gentle hope that in our rush to capture the future, we don't forget to cherish the past. You find yourself in a cozy kitchen, where the scent of freshly brewed tea mingles with the faint aroma of baked bread. The wooden table is scarred with years of use, tiny dents, faded stains, and a pattern of scratches that tell stories of countless meals shared and recipes passed down. You reach for a steaming cup, feeling the warmth seep into your fingers, and watch as the gentle steam curls upward, disappearing slowly into the air like a quiet breath. It reminds you of the rituals you once held dear, simple moments of connection often overlooked in the rush of modern life. Back then, meals were a time to gather, to slow down, and to share more than just food. The clatter of dishes and the murmur of voices created a comforting rhythm, grounding you in the present. Now, meals can be eaten anywhere, at desks, on the go, often distracted by screens and notifications. The art of sitting together, truly present, feels like a fading tradition. You remember your grandmother's hands, rough but gentle, expertly kneading dough as stories spilled from her lips like flour dust into the air. She didn't need a timer or an app. She listened to the bread, to the rhythm of the kitchen, trusting her senses. There's ongoing debate about how technology has transformed the very act of eating. Some argue convenience has come at the cost of connection, while others see new ways to explore and celebrate food. You reach out and touch the edge of a well-worn recipe card, ink faded but letters still legible. It's a tangible link to the past, a memory encoded in flour and sugar, in spice and patience. You smile, recalling a joke your uncle once made about burning the toast just to keep us humble. It was a light-hearted reminder that perfection wasn't the goal. Connection was. You take a bite of your own humble snack and savor the textures, the flavors, and the pause. In this moment, the kitchen feels like a sanctuary, a place where time folds gently in on itself. You realize that while tools and habits may change, the human need for nourishment, body and soul, remains constant. And maybe, in the slow unfolding of shared meals and quiet conversations, lies a timeless wisdom about presence, love, and the simple grace of being together. You sit back, your cup warm in your hands, and feel the gentle hum of connection, a thread weaving through past, present, and future. You step into a bustling city square as twilight begins to soften the edges of the buildings. The hum of conversation mingles with the distant echo of street musicians tuning their instruments, creating a soundtrack that feels both timeless and fleeting. Your eyes catch a group of people gathered around a small stage, watching a storyteller spin tales that ripple through the crowd like a gentle breeze. You remember when stories were told this way, face to face, voice to ear, heart to heart, before screens became the main window to the world. There's a certain magic in oral tradition, a dance of words and emotions that can't be captured in pixels or code. Stories were alive, changing with each telling, shaped by the teller and the listener alike. Now, stories are shared at lightning speed, tweets, videos, podcasts, fragments that reach millions but sometimes touch few. The intimacy of a shared glance, a hushed whisper, or a knowing smile feels rarer. You recall that some scholars argue storytelling is one of humanity's oldest tools for making sense of the world, a way to pass wisdom, culture, and hope across generations. You lean against a lamppost, feeling the rough stone under your fingertips, and listen closely. The storyteller's voice rises and falls, weaving humor with sorrow, truth with imagination. There's a surprising detail you hadn't noticed before. A small child near the front, eyes wide and unblinking, hanging on every word as if the story itself could carry them to another place. You smile. The power of a story hasn't diminished. It has only evolved. The mediums shift, but the heart remains. You remember the feeling of sharing a story late into the night, voices soft and breath slow, when the world felt like a place full of possibility and mystery. There's an ongoing debate about how digital culture changes our attention spans and the way we process narratives. Some say it fragments our connection. Others believe it democratizes voices once unheard. You take a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill your lungs, and feel grateful that, whether whispered around fires or streamed through devices, stories endure. Because stories don't just tell us who we were, they light the way to who we might become. And as the storyteller's voice fades into the twilight, you carry a quiet hope that you'll never stop listening or telling. You wander into a quiet library, the familiar scent of aged paper and polished wood wrapping around you like an old, comforting blanket. The soft thud of footsteps and the occasional rustle of pages create a gentle symphony of calm. You reach for a thick, leather-bound book with gilt edges, its spine cracked from years of tender use. You open it slowly, feeling the weight of history in your hands. This book has stories embedded in its fibers, stories that carried knowledge long before the internet hummed to life. You recall how, just a decade ago, libraries were bustling with visitors hunched over thick volumes or lined up at computers with slow internet connections. Now, digital archives and ebooks dominate, bringing knowledge to fingertips anywhere, anytime. Yet, there's something irreplaceable about the tactile experience. The crisp turn of a page, the smell of ink and dust, the quiet solitude. Some scholars argue that physical books engage the brain differently than digital screens, fostering deeper focus and reflection. Others point to the accessibility and convenience of digital reading as a leap forward. You run your fingers along the embossed letters on the cover and find a small, handwritten note tucked inside. A bookmark left by someone long ago, with a gentle reminder: read slowly, absorb fully. It makes you smile. In this age of endless distraction, slow reading feels like an act of rebellion and love. You lean back, listening to the faint ticking of a grandfather clock, and think about how knowledge and wisdom have traveled through time, from oral traditions to ink and parchment, to bits and bytes. There's ongoing debate about whether the digital age will erode our patience or enhance our curiosity. You hope for both, the spark to seek and the grace to linger. You glance around, noticing a young student absorbed in a tablet, yet occasionally glancing up to the rows of ancient tomes with reverence. You wonder what the future holds for libraries. Will they become silent sanctuaries, or vibrant hubs of connection and creativity? You close the book gently and rise, feeling the steady pulse of human curiosity beneath your skin, a thread that links all seekers across all time. And as you step out into the fading light, you carry with you a quiet promise to cherish knowledge in whatever form it comes, and to keep the flame of wonder alive. You find yourself walking along a quiet street bathed in the golden light of a late afternoon sun. The air is tinged with the faint scent of rain yet to come, and the distant sound of a clock tower marks the steady passage of time. Your eyes catch an old payphone booth standing at the corner, a relic from a time not so long ago. You step closer, fingers tracing the cool, worn metal, and imagine the stories whispered into that handset. Nervous calls, hurried messages, long-distance love. 10 years ago, this was a lifeline, a public portal to the world. Now, smartphones have replaced these booths, their screens brighter, faster, and always within reach. You smile at the thought of how quickly we've shifted from quarters and coins to biometric locks and voice assistants. It's almost surreal. Some scholars argue that the disappearance of public phones marks not just a technological shift, but a cultural one, from shared spaces to personal bubbles. You remember the awkward thrill of waiting for a busy line to clear? The clink of coins dropping into the slot? The comforting buzz of a dial tone? There's a little-known detail that many miss. Payphones were once painted bright yellow in some cities, designed to stand out like beacons in the urban landscape. Now, with everyone carrying a small supercomputer in their pocket, communication is instantaneous, omnipresent, and often overwhelming. You wonder about the paradox of connection, how we are more reachable than ever, yet sometimes feel more isolated. You pause beside the booth, listening to the distant hum of city life, and think about how tools shape our relationships and our sense of presence. In the next decade, will communication become even more invisible, woven into fabrics and gestures? Or will we find ways to reclaim moments of genuine human contact? You take a deep breath, feeling the cool air brush your skin, and smile softly. Because despite all the change, the longing to be heard, truly heard, remains timeless. And perhaps that is the most important call we'll ever make. You stroll into a quiet room filled with soft light filtering through sheer curtains. The walls are lined with shelves holding stacks of notebooks, journals, and loose sheets of paper, remnants of an era when thoughts and ideas were penned by hand. You pick up a faded leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed but full of delicate script and little doodles in the margins. You run your fingers over the ink and feel a connection to the person who once wrote here, their thoughts preserved in a tactile, intimate way. Just 10 years ago, handwritten notes were still the backbone of many workflows, in classrooms, offices, and personal lives. Today, digital tools have replaced most of that, turning notes into typed text, searchable, editable, and synced across devices. There's an ongoing debate among educators and psychologists about how handwriting influences memory and creativity. Some scholars argue that writing by hand strengthens neural pathways, helping us think more deeply. You smile at the irony that in our quest for efficiency, we may have lost some of the nuance of thought. You turn the page carefully, noticing a tiny sketch of a tree beside a line of poetry. A detail easy to overlook, but revealing the human need to personalize and pause. In a world dominated by keyboards and screens, the quiet act of writing can feel like a rebellion, a moment to slow down, to connect with your own mind. You remember the gentle scratch of pen on paper? The way a pause to doodle or underline gave your brain space to breathe. You wonder how future generations will document their inner worlds. Will digital devices capture the same texture and rhythm of handwriting? Or will something essential fade away? You tuck the journal under your arm and sit by the window, watching leaves flutter in the breeze, thinking that perhaps the true value lies not in the tool, but in the intention behind it. And as the light softens, you feel a gentle reassurance. No matter the medium, the human story continues to be written. One thought, one word, one quiet moment at a time. You find yourself in a small, sunlit room where the faint scent of wood polish and paper lingers. Before you is an old typewriter, its keys worn smooth from years of use, sitting beside a sleek laptop humming quietly on the desk. You press a key lightly on the typewriter, hearing the satisfying clack and the carriage's soft return. It's a sound that once filled rooms with the rhythm of stories being born. Stories typed with care, pause, and deliberate thought. Just a decade ago, writers and journalists still relied heavily on these machines, their work a tactile dance of fingers and ink ribbons. Now, computers and voice-to-text technology have taken center stage, offering speed and convenience that once seemed unimaginable. Some scholars argue that the shift from typewriter to keyboard changed not just how we write, but how we think, from a measured process to a rapid-fire flow. You laugh softly, remembering a joke from a writer friend who claimed the typewriter was the original writer's workout, pressing keys like a pianist but without the applause. There's a surprising detail. Early typewriters didn't have the number 1 key. Typists had to use a lowercase l instead. It's a quirky reminder of how tools evolve alongside us. You glance at the laptop screen, glowing with endless possibilities, and consider how technology shapes creativity, freeing some, challenging others. You wonder if the essence of writing, that intimate act of capturing thought, remains unchanged beneath the surface of new tools. You place your fingers on the laptop's keyboard, feeling the smooth plastic beneath, and think about the future of storytelling. Will AI write novels? Will human touch still matter? For now, you let the typewriter's rhythm echo in your mind, a reminder that every story begins with a single, deliberate keystroke. And as the afternoon light fades, you feel the quiet comfort of knowing that, no matter the medium, the heart of expression beats steadily on. You step into a sun-dappled park where the laughter of children mixes with the rustling of leaves overhead. You notice a group gathered around a chessboard, their faces lit with concentration and quiet joy. You sit on a nearby bench, feeling the smooth grain of the wooden slats beneath your fingers, and watch the players as they move pieces with thoughtful precision. Chess, once a game confined to physical boards and face-to-face matches, has transformed over the past decade. Online platforms now connect players across the globe, allowing moves to be made from anywhere, anytime. You smile, recalling the satisfying click of wooden pieces sliding across a board, the tactile weight grounding you in the moment, a contrast to the pixelated screens of today. Some scholars argue that while technology broadens access, it can also dilute the sensory experience that deepens our engagement. There's a little-known fact. The longest chess game in history lasted over 20 hours, a testament to human patience and strategy, qualities still cherished. You overhear a player joke about their virtual checkmate skills, blending humor with the timeless challenge of the game. You think about how games like chess mirror life itself. Strategic, unpredictable, yet deeply human. You wonder what the next decade will bring. Maybe immersive virtual reality matches or AI opponents that teach and challenge us. But for now, you cherish the simplicity of shared space, of quiet rivalry, and of the unspoken bond formed over a game. And as the sun dips lower, you feel the gentle lesson beneath it all. No matter how tools evolve, the human spirit thrives in connection and play. You find yourself standing at the edge of a quiet street as twilight deepens, the soft glow of street lamps casting long shadows on the pavement. The familiar chime of a bicycle bell rings out, and you watch an elderly man glide by, his basket filled with fresh flowers. It's a gentle reminder of how transportation has changed. From simple bikes and buses to electric scooters and autonomous vehicles just beginning to appear in some cities. 10 years ago, the hum of engines and the occasional honk filled the streets. Now, quieter, cleaner alternatives are gaining ground, reshaping the rhythm of urban life. Some scholars argue that this shift reflects a broader cultural desire to slow down, to breathe easier, and to reclaim public spaces. You chuckle softly, remembering a joke about how the future might have us all zooming around on hoverboards. Still waiting on that one, but who knows? A surprising detail catches your eye. Some cities have repurposed old parking lots into community gardens and playgrounds, turning spaces of transit into places of rest and play. You think about how transportation isn't just about movement, but about how we relate to our environment and each other. You wonder what the next decade holds. Quieter streets, smarter systems, more people choosing paths over highways. You breathe in the cool evening air, feeling the pulse of the city slow to a gentler beat. Because no matter how fast technology drives change, the true journey is learning to move with grace and care. And as the night settles around you, you feel a hopeful calm, a quiet invitation to embrace the journey ahead, wherever it may lead. You walk into a cozy cafe filled with the rich aroma of roasted coffee beans and soft chatter from patrons scattered across worn wooden tables. The walls are adorned with photographs, some faded and sepia-toned, others sharp and digital. You settle into a corner seat and pull out a smartphone, its sleek screen glowing softly in your hands. It's a symbol of the vast technological leaps of the past decade. A device that's become an extension of yourself, connecting you to the world, and yet sometimes pulling you away from the moment. You recall when cameras were bulky and film needed careful winding, and how now every phone carries a powerful lens that captures life in an instant. Some scholars argue that this instant gratification has altered not just how we capture memories, but how we experience them. Sometimes living for the shot rather than the moment itself. You smile at a joke from a friend who quipped, "Back then, we waited days to see if our pictures were any good. Now we delete them in seconds." You glance around and notice someone carefully framing a shot of their latte art, while across the room, an older couple quietly shares a newspaper. There's a little-known fact that the first digital camera was invented nearly 50 years ago, but only became widely accessible recently, showing how long innovation can take to seep into daily life. You think about how these tools have shifted the way we tell our stories, how we share our lives, and how we remember. You wonder if, in the next decade, virtual reality or AI might transform our memories into living experiences, blurring lines between past and present. But for now, you place the phone down and savor the present. The warmth of the cafe, the hum of conversation, and the slow dance of moments unfolding quietly. Because sometimes, The most meaningful connections happen when screens fade and presence grows. And as the evening stretches softly around you, you feel a gentle gratitude for both the old and the new, and for the stories still waiting to be told. You find yourself on a peaceful hilltop just as the sun begins to set, painting the sky in soft hues of pink, orange, and lavender. The air carries the scent of wildflowers and distant pine. The gentle breeze brushes against your skin like a tender whisper. You sit down on the cool grass, feeling the earth steady beneath you, and look out over a landscape that seems to stretch into forever. A perfect metaphor for the journey of change across the last decade and the promise of the next. You think back to the flip phones that once fit snugly in your pocket, the handwritten notes, the typewriters, and the old payphones. Each a snapshot of moments, tools, and lives that shaped who you are now. Some scholars suggest that understanding our past isn't about nostalgia alone, but about finding roots from which to grow and wings to soar. You chuckle softly, remembering how awkward those old devices felt, compared to the smooth, powerful technology of today. Yet how each had its own charm and purpose. There's a surprising detail in all this change. Even as tools evolve and lifestyles shift, the human need for connection, meaning, and growth remains constant. You feel a quiet swell of hope, knowing that while we may lose certain comforts along the way, we gain new opportunities to create, love, and understand. You close your eyes briefly, breathing deeply, savoring the twilight's calm, and sense the continuity of your own story, one of adaptation, resilience, and gentle courage. And as night begins to settle softly, you realize that the journey isn't just about the tools or the years past. It's about the grace with which you walk forward, carrying lessons learned and dreams yet to be realized. So, take this moment to rest, to reflect, and to trust in your own unfolding path. The future is waiting, bright, uncertain, and full of promise. And now, as the night deepens and the world around you grows quiet, you lie back beneath a canopy of stars, or maybe just the soft shadows of your room, your breath slow and steady, your thoughts gently untangling. You've wandered through time tonight, from the gentle clack of typewriter keys to the silent swipe of touchscreens, from quiet libraries to cloud-synced notebooks, from shared glances at a chessboard to infinite scrolls on glowing screens. You've remembered who you were and who you've become. Not all change is easy. Some of it arrives without warning, uninvited, uncomfortable. But even then, you've adapted. You've evolved. You've carried old tools forward and let others go. That's what growth looks like. Not a leap, but a quiet, continuous walk. And maybe along that walk, you've realized something simple and beautiful. That the essence of you, your kindness, your creativity, your strength, has never been tied to the tools in your hands, but to the heart behind them. So now, as your eyes grow heavy and your thoughts soften into dreams, let that truth rest with you. You've made it through every version of the world so far. You'll make it through the next. Let go. Be still. You're exactly where you need to be.